gospel parables, Pope Leo recently reminded us, are an opportunity to change perspective and open ourselves to hope. This 15th Sunday in Ordinary Time, we return once again to Jesus' most famous parable, the parable of the Good Samaritan, and with it, the ethics of compassion. In the first reading from Deuteronomy, we hear Moses imploring the people to heed the voice of God and return to God with all your heart and all your soul. As we listen, we too are being called back into relationship with God and neighbor, not by a thundering voice from above, but from one emanating from within our own hearts. The task before us is already in our mouths and in our hearts, Deuteronomy says. You only have to carry it out. Sounds easy enough, but all too often, we know the right thing to do, but we struggle to act. At its core, the parable of the Good Samaritan is a story of compassion, which reminds us that compassion is more than just a feeling. An ethics of compassion requires concrete, appropriate actions in response to need or suffering. In the narrative, the Samaritan doesn't just feel compassion, feel mercy. He pours wine to disinfect, oil to soothe and coat wounds, and attends to the long-term recovery of the wounded man. Recently, Pope Leo preached that this parable also is a deeper metaphor for life itself. Life is made up of encounters, he explains, in which we find ourselves in front of others, faced with their fragility and weakness, and we can decide what to do, to take care of them or pretend that nothing is wrong. The temptation to keep walking, to ignore the needs of our neighbor, to pretend that nothing is wrong, to pretend it is not our responsibility, drives what Pope Francis called the globalization of indifference. In the parable, 3 persons encounter the wounded man, but only the Samaritan allows his perspective to shift. The shift he makes, according to Dr. King, is from being concerned with what would happen to me if I stop, to instead ask what will happen to the wounded man if I do not. It is a shift in perspective, a shift in position. Our moral obligations to respond to our neighbors in need is tied both to actual need and to our ability, either as individuals or together, to act. It is both an individual and a communal question. Dr. King preached on the Good Samaritan while urging solidarity with striking sanitation workers during the civil rights movement. Collective action, collective compassion. Today, we need to ask ourselves this question on a global scale. Over the last few months, I have spent a lot of time explaining and defending USAID, or the U.S. Agency for International Development. As Americans, USAID was an example of practicing compassion, a secular but collective response to global poverty. For decades, its largest non-governmental grant partner has been Catholic Relief Services. As Catholics in the United States, CRS is our official response to global poverty and development. In over 100 countries, CRS delivers emergency humanitarian assistance, maternal and child programs like ones I visited in northern Ghana, which helped foster mothers and children's flourishing, hunger programs, and so much more. Compassion and solidarity lived out through partnership and community building. Compassion done together. Practicing compassion and solidarity is not weakness. It is a sign of our common humanity. It is embracing hope. Millions of our poorest neighbors relied on USAID funding for addressing their basic needs like food and clean water and medicines. While it was only 1% or less of the U.S. federal budget, in the last 20 years alone, the Lancet estimates that USAID's work saved almost 92 million lives in 133 countries, some of them through Catholic Relief Services projects. Only 11% of USAID maternal and child health projects have survived the budget cuts. If these cuts are not restored, Lancet estimates that as a result, 14 million people, including 4.5 million children under the age of 5, will likely die in the next 5 years, by 2030. God calls to us from the depths of our own hearts. Christ calls to us in the face of our neighbor, even those whom we will never meet. How then can we together advocate for compassion and solidarity and resist indifference, resist pretending like nothing is wrong? That is the message that I hear as I return once again to the parable of the Good Samaritan today.